Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Antoine Medley, the founder and creator of the Force Pivot podcast, and I want to welcome you guys. This is our first season. This is our fifth episode, and I was sitting here thinking about that before the show started. I'm like, episode five. Wow. It's probably less than a month and a half ago. I had no idea how to do a podcast. I really didn't. I had no idea what I was doing. But again, it's funny when you know people who've done certain things. Those are the people that you go to. I try to stress to my daughters all the time is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just find somebody that you know that's done something before. Go seek their help, and people are always open to help you. But I want to welcome you guys to the show. And again, this is our fifth episode. I hope you checked out the past past four episodes. If you haven't, you can go to any of your podcast platforms and check us out. Go take a listen, leave us a rating, subscribe, and so you can, stay abreast of what we're doing. Um, I know when I came out of the gates with this thing, I was like, well, I want to do the video piece and stream that, and then do the podcast piece. But I've been meeting so many people and so many people are wanting to get on the show. I think I'm gonna have to slow down on the video part because the video part is kind of limiting me. It's like I could probably talk to two or three people a week, really, but the video part is kind of strapping me in, a little bit. So, I don't know. Be on the lookout on social media. I'll let you guys know what I decide and when I decide to do it. But I've got so many people, sort of lined up. I don't want to limit them. I don't want to limit the show because I mean there are people out there that are really vibing on what the show's been giving them so far. They've been, and they're like, hey Antoine, I mean, me, my story. And I'm like, yeah, I do, and you're a perfect person to come on the show because life throws curveballs to so many of us all the time, and people are swinging at those balls and missing, and some people are knocking them over the fence. Some people are hitting foul balls, and the bad thing about some of this stuff is some people are even getting hit by that curveball, right? And that's not a real good thing. So just be on the lookout. Some things may be changing here in the future, but my goal is to continue to bring you guys guests who can enlighten us all on how they got from A to B. One of the things I want to keep stressing to people is no life is lived in a straight line. I don't know a single person who's lived a life in a straight line. Nobody's life is a straight line. I mean, everybody's life is left, right, up, down, in every different direction. But the hope is that we keep progressing in that life, right? No matter whether we're going left or right. My fraternity, we have this thing where we talk no backward steps. It's like, okay, pause, go left, right, but keep going forward. Let's not take any backward steps. Let's always be progressing, and that's something that my dad taught me that all my life, taught me and all my brothers the same thing. Just keep progressing. That's all you can do. Just never stop progressing because I mean, you just don't know where that next step is going to take you. That next step may take you, may put you on a conveyor belt that'll take you 100 miles an hour. And you hope that step that takes you that 100 miles an hour is the best step, right? But the thing is, you never know. You never know until you take the step. So we have to take it, right? One of the things too I brought to your attention, I think it was last week, about this Japanese art form that's really just been, bouncing around in my head, and it's like I can't even let it go. It's called Kinsuji. Basically, this art form is where they take broken pottery and they put it back together. But when they put it back together, they use precious metals, right? So you think about this. Oh, you drop a bowl in your kitchen. What do? We throw it away, right? But that's an art form where they take this broken pottery and stuff, and that may not have been as valuable, but once they put it back together with these precious metals, it is invaluable, and I really, I mean, that thing relates to life so much for me because I think there are times when I think we're broken, and with the help of other people, we're put back together, and we hope we're put back together better, right? We hope we're put back together, in a way that'll help us move along even better. We learn some lessons from it, but we just don't want to stay that piece of broken pottery on the floor. right? We want to continue to keep going. And I know I'm dating myself, and it actually comes on TV now. You think about the $6 million man, and you think about Steve Austin, right? You're like, wow, Steve Austin, he's $6 million man. But if he hadn't been broken, he would never have become the $6 million man. He would have just been a man, right? So he had to be broken to get there. But again, sometimes we're fearful of that brokenness. We're fearful of being broken, so we limit. I think we limit ourselves. So we can't fear taking chances. We can't fear making pivots in life, because there will be times, like the title of the show, the forced pivot. There are going to be times where you're going to be forced to move. You're not gonna have a choice. You're going to be forced to pivot, and if either you're going to be forced to pivot, or you're just going to stand still, and nothing. Sometimes nothing good is going to come of that. You know, but you know, I want to continue again, bring on people, because I always harp back on you know March of 2020. Everything changed that day. Everybody pivoted in some way. I don't know anybody who just continued to live the way they were living before. Some people may have tried to get back to living the way they were living before quicker than others, but there was a major shock in the world. The world tilted in a bit, in a way, due to COVID, and everybody has a story. And I think now if we all sit back and we think about that pivot that the world took, we'll think about other pivots that we made in our life will come to mind. But I'm going to stop rambling on. I'm going to bring on our next guest. This brother is a fraternity brother of mine. And the funny thing is, this brother and I, we've never spoken before, but I've been watching this brother from afar, and I'm like, how is he doing what he's doing? But I've been watching him afar, and then when I launched my show, I said, you know what? Okay, I wrote down a list of people. I'm like, who do I need to get on here? And his name was definitely there, because I think he's got a story that I'm going to learn about. And I read his bio, and I've kind of watched that bio a little bit in action. But I'm going to bring him on so he can tell us himself, how he got from A to B. And again, between that A to B, there's so many other letters that humans don't even know, right? Because again, no life is lived in a straight line. So I'm going to bring on Craig Stokes. He's our guest for tonight, and I know he's going to share some stuff with us that we can all take and use in our lives as we move around this life, because how do we dodge left to right with these forced pivots, and how we make decisions on our own. Brother Stokes, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to meet you officially and to connect with you after all this time.
I know, man. I'm so glad that when I reached out, you said yeah, because I know you're a busy man, and by you being on the West Coast, I was like, okay, well, we got to make this thing happen, because we're hours apart.
Right, right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, what I've come to learn is that the most important thing we can really take from any situation is our relationships and
Mhm.
what we give back and what we leave behind. And so, when you invited me on the podcast, I saw it as an opportunity to do just that. So, thank you and congrats to you. This is what, fifth episode. So, congrats to you for the amazing work on the podcast. So many people wanted to have podcasts, and yet you're out here doing it. So, I just want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of get into your story. So introduce yourself to everybody.
Absolutely. What's up, everybody? Craig Stokes. Grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So if you're a fan of J. Cole and his music, same hometown. So that's our hometown hero. I was born in Florida. Both of my parents went to Florida State. That's where they met. So I spent every summer of my life back in South Florida with my grandparents. So Fayetteville is where I was raised, but Florida is very much in my heart and soul as well. I come from a family of creative people, whether it's business or the arts, entertainment, um, whether it's how we connect with people. My mother was a social worker. My father was an attorney, now is a judge, small businesses. And I'll give you a little bit of that background in just a second. But I'm a product of all of those things. So how I see the world and how the world has been shaped for me is definitely a direct result of my parents. And so I would say very early on, that creative spirit, that whole idea of if there's something that you want, if there's something that I wanted to achieve or to experience, both my parents would say, one, don't put all my eggs in one basket, and two, if there's something that I want, go get it.
Mhm.
And so that was something I learned early on, and it was reinforced throughout my whole lifehood, so my childhood. So as a kid, my mother and my stepfather started a children's birthday party business. So I would literally, yours truly, would be dressed up as the Power Ranger. So from age 13 to 16, it's like I'm not a big guy right now, so you can only imagine what a 13-year-old Craig looks like in red spandex. But I'd be dressed up. I get hired to go do kicks and punches and eat cake and ice cream with the kids, and I'm 13 years old, so I very much want to eat their pizza. I very much want to eat their ice cream, but I'm learning at a young age, hey, this is a once in a lifetime experience for this kid,
Mhm.
and I'm here to do a job.
Correct.
Uh,
You're on the clock.
I'm on the clock. I'm here to make a difference, and so what I do matters. Even at this age, it matters. It will be remembered, hopefully.
Mhm.
And so that was a seed that was planted very very early on in my life about making the most of those moments, even if sometimes I was too young to appreciate it at the time. But making the most of those moments was something that just became like a through line throughout my life. And so 16 years old, job at KFC, which seems like a far cry from where I am now, which we'll talk about as well. But
Right.
I showed up to that interview in a full suit, right, making the most
Mhm.
of that moment. Going to college, graduated from North Carolina A&T, which I had to represent today. Uh, I'm just a product of growing up in the South, parents who believed in me, wanted me to believe in myself, wanted me to make the most of every moment. And we could talk about all of those things if you want,
Mhm.
but that's a
Mhm.
little bit about who I am. I'm very creative. Spent a lot of time in the entertainment industry, on in front of the camera, behind the camera as an actor, as a host, interviewer, things like that. Um,
Correct.
and then small business as well as in the military. So
Okay. Okay. Well, like I said, just looking over your bio, and I mean, I know you went to A&T, but when I saw what your degree was in, I was like, wow. Okay. Architectural engineering. My oldest daughter, um, you know, has a desire to be an architect, and
okay.
she spent a semester at Tuskegee for architecture, and now she's back home just because of some things that have gone on, and
Mhm.
and she's still looking, searching for herself. But I'm still telling her, that passion for architecture, you can still do that. You can become an architect in grad school,
Very
right?
true.
So if you want to go down that road, me, I'm behind you 100%. But if you want to go do something else and kind of search for yourself, and then if that road takes you back to architecture, great.
Yep.
Great, great, great. So now architecture engineering, I mean, that there's some creativity there, right? So
Yep.
where did that come from?
I always liked drawing. I always liked creating when I was just in elementary school, middle, high school. And so towards the end of high school, I took a computer drafting class
Mhm.
as one of my electives, and found like I really like this. This taps into not only my creative side, but also the analytical, because you have to, be precise when you're building a building, right? You can't just,
Mhm.
throw anything together and expect that it's going to stand up. So it's creative with how the building could look, but it's very analytical and technical with how to make it work. And that was the marriage with architecture and engineering. It's the
Right.
way that it looks versus how it works. And so my biggest challenge was, what school am I going to go to for this degree? You know,
My daughter, she didn't pick A&T because she wanted true architecture. She didn't want to do the engineering piece of it. She's like,
got it.
I don't want anything to do with that. Just give me my pencils, or because she really like it by hand. She the computer piece of it, she really didn't care
Mhm.
for it. She wanted to actually give me my lead pencil, and I'm going to draw it on this architecture table.
Yeah.
And she didn't want anything to do with engineering. So she got into A&T, but the engineering piece was really all they had besides the landscape piece. So she
Exactly.
said, well, I don't want to limit myself to landscape architecture either. I'm like, well, whatever. So she applied to, the Morgan State, Howard, Hampton,
Okay.
FAMU, all the schools that had architecture schools, all the HBCUs, because she was like, HBCU or nothing. So So she chose Tuskegee, but like I said, now we're back and she's trying to figure some things out. So you actually completed that degree there.
Yep.
Did you ever really jump out into that field, or what happened after you graduated?
No, great question. Yeah, so architectural engineering is a degree that I never got a chance to use. It's a degree I would still go back and do 100 times over because of how it makes you think. It
Mm,
doesn't teach you what to think as much as how to think, right? And so the process of working through problems and scenarios and what if and what, and just trying to find a solution, collaborating with other people from that are interested in the electrical side of the house or the mechanical side of the house or the structural side of the house, and being able to make a project that you all are happy with in the end. I think that's just an amazing thing that I'm very glad I got a chance to experience. But I was in ROTC, so I had an ROTC scholarship, and I thought I was going to go into the military full time, and so that was just kind of, I'm doing my degree, but then I'm going into the military. But then right before I graduated, they said, "Hey, Craig, instead of going into the military full time to pay back your scholarship, you can go you can go into the reserves and pay back your scholarship." So now I'm able to do two different lives at once. I could go to grad school full time and
right.
still serve in the military, and which is what I did. And so I pivoted from engineering to get my MBA right down the street at UNCG.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Well, good. I mean, and I know, like, so from what you're doing now, that MBA helped out a big time. I know.
Yeah.
Um, my daughter, well, my youngest daughter is a junior, so we just went over to UNCG, not this past Saturday, but Saturday before last. So we actually toured that campus 2 Saturdays ago.
What does she think?
Um, beautiful campus, man. Beautiful campus. But well, my oldest daughter had to work, but my youngest one, she really liked it, and she was like, if I had to do a PWI, that would be the one.
Yeah.
Because it kind of sits over there in the heart of Bennett and A&T and
Absolutely.
right near Winston-Salem State. And so she's like, if I had to do one, that would be the one. So it's kind of on the list. It's
Okay.
kind of on the list right now. So, we're about to kick off this whole new process with my youngest,
Okay.
as my oldest, she's, I'm like, okay, just figure out what you want to major in and where you want to go. And we'll just make it happen. So we did some college touring last week. We went to Fayetteville State, and we went over to North Carolina Central last week as well.
Okay.
So
Good choices on the list. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. When you mentioned Fayetteville, I was like, okay, we were right down there in your hometown.
yeah. And my high school was right down the street, literally right down the street from Fayetteville State. So probably 3 or 4 blocks away, if
Okay.
that. So a lot of my friends from high school went straight to Fayetteville State to complete their degree as well. So lots of good choices on the list. And I think what your daughter is doing right now is something I would advise to everyone, which is just go out and experience as much as you can, because life is so short. Even if you live to be 90, 100 years old, it flies by so fast. And the worst thing you could do is spend a lifetime doing something that's not really, connecting with
Yeah,
you. So
yeah. So what arm of the military are you, sir? Are you're still serving, right?
I'm still in the Air Force Reserve. So I've been in the Air Force now 17 years.
Okay. Okay.
So lots of time has flown by there as well.
I know, man. I know. So, man, look, how did you get to LA?
Yeah.
What took you to LA
Let
from
me,
Greensboro?
I would say the biggest turning point for me, some of those, we all have those big moments, that decision that we make, the person that we met, whatever it is. For me, I would say A&T was a big part of it. And so reason being is I came to A&T with the goal of doing something bigger and better every year that I was there, whether it
Mhm.
was being a part of a fraternity, whether it was starting an organization, whether it was becoming Mr. A&T my sophomore year, whatever it was something I was looking for every year. And towards my last year there, one of the things that I ended up doing was I acted in my first film, my first feature film. It was a UNCG student who was doing their grad dissertation, and it was a film that they were putting together. And so I ended up getting the lead role for that film. What that did is it came at the perfect time, right when I was getting ready to graduate and getting offered the opportunity with the Air Force to go in part-time instead of full-time. So now I am going to school to get my MBA. I'm in the Air Force part-time, and I'm acting.
Correct.
And that ended up being the three parallel lives that I lived until I got to LA. So continue to act, continue to run a small business. I launched a small business in college, in grad school, called LIPS, which was logos, internet presence, printing, and stationery. So I would do graphic design and printing and business cards and web design and billboard designs for small businesses. And while I was at A&T, I designed my own clothing line. So I had a
Mhm.
clothing line called Cool Classics. And so that came out around 2002, 2003, right before I graduated. So again, small business, acting, the creative side of things, and then the structure in the military. And so we moved from Greensboro. We stayed in Greensboro for a long time, and then we moved to Fayetteville so my wife could go back to school. And I'm still pursuing business. I'm still pursuing entertainment. I'm still pursuing the military. And it wasn't until we moved out to California 2016. We just said, hey, I don't want to be 80 years old sitting on my rocking chair regretting that we didn't take a leap of faith and just try something new.
Yeah.
Because at this time, I've already been flying to LA. I've been hosting red carpets. I've been doing acting, doing auditions. I'm pitching TV shows to major networks like BET, Bravo, Food Network, and things like that. And so I'm already tapping into LA. I'm already tapping into California. I'm really pursuing this entertainment side of things while military is still blossoming, while I'm still doing really well for myself on the small business side of
Now, did you have a connect to sort of put you in a certain, because a lot of times it takes being able to know the right person to get you in the room. So
yeah.
did you have a connect out there or what?
Good question. And I did skip a step. So while I was in college, after finishing college, um, I did take a step back and I said, what do people know me as? What do people, when they think of Craig Stokes, what comes to their mind? And so this is probably about 2006, 2007. Up until this point, I had done some acting. I've been in the military. I have an engineering degree and an MBA. Um, I've started my clothing line. Started a graphic design business. So okay, I think that entrepreneur, a stylish entrepreneur, nice guy, that's probably going to come to people's mind. But one thing that wasn't going to come to their mind, but I wanted it to, was that this guy could actually host a show. He
Hmm.
could be on TV.
Hmm.
And so what I realized, I said, well, I could either wait for an opportunity or I could create an opportunity. I decided to create an opportunity, and that became my YouTube channel called Style Minute. And so it was a lifestyle show teaching guys how to dress, what not to wear, what to wear to an interview, what's black tie, what does that even mean? And so I said, I'm going to do as many episodes as I possibly can to show people that this is what I want to do and that this is what I'm capable of doing.
Hmm.
So I ended up creating 70 episodes of the show. I found a guy that wanted to kind of build his portfolio behind the camera. So he had a camera, he had lights, he could do editing. He just needed somebody to be in front of the camera, and that happened to be me.
Wow.
So he would travel to my house. I designed a little set in my house in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he would travel to my house, set up the cameras, the lights, and we would shoot 5 episodes back to back to back in that one day.
Wow.
And I would create it to where it looks like it was 5 different days, but it was really just back to back to back 5 different episodes. So, hey, welcome to Style Minute. I'm your host, Craig Stokes. And then I'd switch it up. Hey, it's Style Minute. I'm your host, Craig Stokes. Welcome back. And I would do that 5 different ways, 5 different times.
Use that energy while you got it, right?
Yeah, use it while I have it. And he would go back and edit it. So shout out to John Holland. Without you, man, I wouldn't have been able to kick off that show. So I just want to acknowledge John Holland for helping out. And he would charge me I had no money at the time. So literally he's paying just nothing to get him to do that. But he built his portfolio. I built mine. And then the next week, I would release one of those episodes on Monday, another one on Tuesday, another one on Wednesday, another one on Thursday, another one on Friday. So every week, 5 new episodes that were, to me, well produced were coming out. And people were like, Craig, where are you? Are you in New York? Are you in LA? I'm like, no, I'm in my living room in Greensboro.
In Greensboro.
Doing this. But what it did is it said, Craig dressed well in college, so this makes sense for him. And he's demonstrating something that I didn't even know he was interested in anything like this. But you asked about the pivot and how do I pivot from YouTube? How do I pivot from my living room in Greensboro? And I put on Facebook. One of the things I highly recommend anybody watching is you have to express to the right people what your dreams and what your goals are. And if you've demonstrated to them like, oh no, you really are serious, that they'll get behind you. They will support you. People they'll have your back if you've demonstrated that you're willing to put in that work. I did 70 episodes. People knew I was willing to put in the work. I put on Facebook, I'm looking for a national home for my TV show. Style Network, BET. Does anybody know anybody? I got a DM from my guy Ashley Hoover. Shout you out as well. He said, "Hey, I went to A&T with a guy who's at head of marketing for BET." I said, he said, I'll share it with him. We'll see what happens. The guy was interested. That's Matthew Barnhill. Thank you, Matt, as well. Hey, have Craig send me in a DVD of his shows, right? I sent in a DVD of my shows, put together, customized DV with a DV menu. I did everything I could possibly do to make this professional. Right. He forwarded it to the team out in LA, and Austin, my guy out in LA, saw it, loved it, reached out to me the very next day. And from there, we built a relationship where I could pitch him shows. I could, hey, I have this show, what, so I probably pitched 10 to 20 different show ideas that I came up with. And I mean, like, written out, thoroughly, fleshed out ideas. And so you asked about my connection. Wait for an opportunity or create an opportunity.
Right.
And without me creating Style Minute, and without me sharing it with the world, and without me being consistent, and without me asking for help, like, hey, I'm looking for this, I wouldn't have gotten connected. And then I wouldn't have been able to start pitching those shows and going from there.
Yeah, that's an awesome word, man. I know. Like, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because, again, I want to prove something to myself first, and then use it as a launching point to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's really why I'm doing this. How long I'm going to go, I don't know. I'm gonna do it as long as I can. And I know, as I talked there, it's funny how you mentioned about how you were doing shows over and over and over, and that's what one of the things I'm sort of reconsidering now. It's like, I'm strapping myself into the video piece of it, but it's kind of constraining me a little bit. But because I've got other people who I was like, well, man, I can talk to you on Wednesday, but I don't want to get people strapped into doing the video. When, like you said, we could end this, and I could have another person wait, and we could get on, and I can record it and just get it out there, because the podcast piece is really around the audio.
The audio, right.
And that's the crucial piece. But with this platform that I'm using here, I helped my daughter do a program, and she was using it, so I kind of learned the ins and outs of this program. Okay. But I didn't really know the whole, just strip the audio piece. I didn't know that until a friend of mine told me that. She's like, "Oh yeah, Antoine, you're already using this. Just strip the audio part, upload it to Apple, and away you go." And I was like, "Well, Lord, really?"
See,
really?
The more you know, right? The more you know.
I'm telling you, man. The more you know. So I remember some years ago, I remember seeing something. I don't know if it was on television or if it was on social media. It was like you and this little girl. I was like, "What is he doing?" But it was was that your daughter?
Was it a commercial?
I don't know if it's a commercial or you're doing some show. It was, or the little girl had a show.
Oh, yeah. So and it's still something we're working on. So my daughter. Shout out my daughter, 12 years old now. Her name is London. Mm-hmm. And so about a year and a half or so, we had put together some, for early life photos, and we wanted to put a photo album together. And so I called the photo album London in America. So that was the first time I used that name. And around 5 years old, probably about 4 years old, we were living in a community and where it wasn't as diverse. She didn't see a lot of girls or people that looked like her. And I would notice how she would see things on TV, and she's like, "I want my skin to look like this. I want that kind of hair." And I was like, wow. So she's not currently watching or seeing people that look like her. That's reinforcing that you're enough. Right. You are fine. You're perfect, amazing the way you are. And so again, wait for the opportunity or create the opportunity. And I said, well, I could be the change. I could create this opportunity for her to be her own role model, for her to see her own image reflected in a way that makes her say, I am good enough. This is fine. And so we created a show called London in America on YouTube. So a bit of edutainment, something where other kids could see somebody that looks like them, same age or similar age, sharing life experiences and learning lessons that are, applicable to their age group. And so we launched that, and that's just an amazing experience because I'm bonding with my daughter over something I like to do, something she clearly has a talent for, and accomplishing some of the other things where she learns to memorize her script. She learns how to look directly in the camera, make that eye contact with her audience. She understands the storyline. She understands that she's making a difference in the lives of other people. And so the video started being shown in daycares and classrooms. People started memorizing one of the songs that we came up with. And
Oh wow.
I mean, it's just really a really cool experience. And so she got asked to be on the local news, and she had to speak in front of 600 parents and kids when she was about 6 years old. And so she started getting these life experiences that were not only good for other people in terms of them watching videos, but for her
Right. Preparing
personal
her.
development. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter, my oldest, she started a program called because the architecture piece, right?
Yeah.
There are not a lot of licensed Black women architects. When that clicked in her head, and she's found out that at the time there were less than 500.
Wow.
So she was like, okay, well that's not cool. We got to do something about that. I'm like, okay. So I challenged her to go figure out what she wanted to do. So she said, I want to start a program. I'm like, well, what are you gonna name it? She's like, let's name it Black Girls Draw.
Mm.
Okay. So she, and again, this is like we just went into lockdown on COVID. So she launched her program. We put stuff out all over the place, and next thing you know, she's getting little girls registered to come to her, come to a Zoom meeting, and she's going to introduce them to architecture and design. And she's
That's so
she's
cool.
17 years old. She's not an architect, but she's just showing them what she's what little bit she knows, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I was like, well, Morgan, let's do how about you reach out to some women architects, some Black women architects, and see if they'd like to come on like a something just like this. And she was like, okay, let's do it. So we reached out to gosh, I mean, like we reached out to, like, I don't know if you heard of the name Zena Howard. Zena Howard is a big time architect over in Durham who helped with the designing of the African American History Museum in
Oh,
DC.
that's
You
pretty.
know,
That's pretty big. I
man,
know
I mean,
her now, though. I know her now.
yeah, and I mean, she's got a Rolodex of Black women architects is just crazy. And I
Wow.
mean, and she's 19. Right. And again, doing this and having her present to little girls, I think she was working from second grade to fifth grade. So
Okay.
she's introducing this stuff to little girls. I mean, that built up her confidence.
Yeah.
Meeting with these women on a show like this, interviewing them, helped her speaking skills, her confidence. And so now is like, I mean, at home how your kids can be, but when you put her on, she can be on.
That's good. That's
And it just like, I'm like, who are you?
yeah.
Whose child are you? But that's good, man. I mean, working with something like that with your kid, like with my youngest, she's launching up something now too. It's her junior year. I'm like, okay, if you're not going to be that 4.2 student,
Mhm.
then you got to make yourself seem, you can't be your average kid.
Gotta
Right.
be
Because
competitive. Yeah.
even at 4.0, you know how many 4.0 kids there are out there nowadays? A whole
Very
lot. But you've got to be different. You've got to make yourself unique. And she
true.
likes reading and she likes writing. So, I was like, well, Clark, what do you want to do? And she's like, well, we started looking at some of the news, and next thing you know, we ran across an article where in like, I think it's in Texas. It's like, they're stripping out Michelle Obama's book. It's
Mm,
like out of schools. And it's like, what? Are you
really?
serious to me? You can't even get her a book in a library? And I mean, with this whole critical race theory thing that's out there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I said, Clark, why don't you just start a book club? And next thing you know, she's starting a book club, and she's reading books that are being banned.
Okay.
It's called the Black Banned Book Club.
Wow.
And she's getting ready to start that with about 5 or 6 little girls that are, her friends that are in her class with her. And I'm like, you can expand that thing. With the power of Zoom, everybody's been zoomed to death.
Yep.
People can collaborate and come together at the snap of a finger
It's so
nowadays.
easy now. Yeah. It's
It's
so.
it's it's, it's too easy.
Mhm.
So I'm just like, okay, I mean, just be different. You gotta be different. And if you're gonna be different about something that you're passionate about.
And
You
that's
know,
something that matters, right? Something that matters long term. And 5, 10, 20 years from now, you look back and say, yeah, I'm still proud about that. I'm still proud
exactly.
I did that. Yeah.
Exactly. That's I know. I got like I've been doing a bunch of mentoring work over the years, and I built a relationship with Brother Cornell West, and I had Dr. West come here to Raleigh with me a couple times to do fundraisers, and it's just like I try to teach them, just don't have fear, don't have any fear,
Hmm.
and if it's just reaching out to somebody, don't worry about it. Just all I can do is say no, just
That's
reach
it.
out.
That's it. That's
And
good
I know
advice.
you've seen that a lot out, especially out in LA land. I mean, you're going to get a lot of no's, right?
Get a lot of no's, yeah, and then I think and there's a healthy sense of fear that we should have because it does say, hey, this moment is big, this moment is valuable, I should take it seriously, but not fear in the standpoint from the sense that it paralyzes us or keeps us from taking that step. Because I think one of the things that the people that are like on their deathbed, when they think about the top 5 regrets or the top 5 things that they think about, the top 2 things are, I wish that I had courage to live a life that was true to who I am, and I
Right.
wish I had spent more time with my family. So if you focus on that first one, I wish I had had the courage to live a life that was true to who I am. And at that point, obviously, it's too late for them. They can't go back in
Right.
time. They can't change
Yeah.
anything. And so what I've learned from that is fear is fine. I can recognize the importance of the moment. Regret is not fine.
Right.
That's not what
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That word in itself is, like I said, I mean, there are times where I sort of beat my kids over the head with certain things, and that's one. I'm like, don't don't regret anything.
Right.
Give it your all, and if you fail, you can take a lot of times our failures. We can take them as learning experiences,
Very much
right?
so.
But don't regret because you didn't try,
Right.
because you would never know. You never know how successful you could have been if you hadn't tried. And I tell them the story of my wife and I. It's like, like if I hadn't called your mom, just out of the blue, if I hadn't called her out of fear or whatever, you guys wouldn't be here. If I
Mm.
hadn't stayed persistent, you
Yep.
guys wouldn't be here. It's just a lot of, and I look back on them like, I could have stopped, right?
Mhm.
But I could have regretted it all, because I know where I am today, and it's like it was all worth it. Just leave it on the field, because if you don't, if you take it home, take some of it home with you. Well, what is that going to do for you if you take any of that energy home with you? Just leave it right there, and see where that takes you.
So basically, what I do hear you saying is a little bit of like a humble brag. Like your dad's got these skills. I approached your mom, and she couldn't resist me. Basically, is what you're saying. That's what you're saying right now. You know what I mean?
No,
You flashed the smile, and she was like,
no,
I'll marry
no.
you right now." Is that what happened? Come on now.
No, she resisted me, but I stayed persistent. That's what I tell them. You can't just give up. You can on that first no, you can't give up.
Yeah, got to
You
keep going.
cannot give up, man, because you're going to get some no's in your life, and you can't just pack up your ball and go home.
No.
With anything, with life, with losses, with love, with health, with you can't just pack. Like I got diagnosed with something, some years ago, and I could have just packed it up.
Yeah.
I could have packed it up and went home, but I chose not to do that. I said, you know what? I'm an eternal optimist, and I look at things like, okay, um, God is he's testing me.
Yeah.
That's all I saw it as. He's testing me with something, and I'm like, am I going to give into it, or am I going? Or he's asking me, Antoine, are you who you think you are?
Mm.
Are you who you say you are? And that's how I took it. And I'm like, okay, I am who I am. I am who I said I am. So, I didn't let it slow me down. I just kept moving, and I'm still moving. And I mean, and that was, gosh, that was 11 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And even through that, man, I became president of my chapter. I became president of the President's Council with the MPHC. I
Okay.
went back to school and got my MBA. And all through that, I'm just like, okay, and that's another thing that lights my fire with this is like, I'm just going to do until I can't,
Yeah.
because again, if you don't, you're going to take some home with you when you could have just burned it on the field. And then that's
Mhm.
that's that's how I'm going. I mean, that diagnosis was one of the biggest pivots in my life. And I'm
Okay.
just like, you know what? I'm not going to give into it. I mean, I remember through the height of, my illness is just like, I felt like I had like a bucket list of things. I'm like, okay, my daughters were little. I mean, gosh, my oldest was 8, 7
Oh.
or 8. And I was just like, man, I'm going to be the one to do this. I'm going to be the one that takes her there, takes
Mm,
them there. So, we were trudging around Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian. I mean, it was just killing me to do it, but I'm like, I'm going to be the one to do that.
yeah.
Because again, I'm not gonna leave any on the field. I'm gonna just burn it out while I have it, because you just don't know. I mean,
Just don't.
life is so fragile. You just don't know what you're gonna get the next second.
It really is, and I think what you're talking about in terms of pivoting. It's I guess we have two choices, right? We can either resist it or we can embrace it. And
Exactly.
if you resisted it and you said, "No, I will stay here. This is the life that I know and this is the life that I'm going to try to maintain." In reality, you said, "I have to accept that this is going on, but I don't have to be limited by it. I don't have to be hindered by it. I can embrace it and still create what becomes a new normal for me."
Exactly.
And through that, and we have the podcast and the NBA and the memories with your daughters and all of those things that you did because you embraced it versus trying to resist it. And because pivot and change is that's the thing that's we can definitely count on is going to happen.
Exactly.
Right. Because
That's
so
that's
I'm
gonna happen.
inspired by what you said too, with my daughters and I have a little boy that's 3. So with them being still young, yeah, I'm learning from you.
Well, man, look, when and by you being a franchise owner, I've wondered about this, since you agreed to come on the show, and that was one of the reasons I was like, I got to ask him about this.
Mhm.
So when COVID happened, what happened with your restaurant? How did you guys pivot? Because I know you had to.
Had to, yeah. So I would say that
Well, first tell them the restaurant that you own.
yeah, so that I own a small chicken restaurant. I'm not sure if many people have heard of it. It's called Chick-fil-A. You might have heard of it. I'm not sure, but so
It's my pleasure.
it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Chick-fil-A if you've never heard of it before. So June of 2017, I put in my application to become a franchise owner. 18-month process. Uh, January 15th of 2019 in Atlanta, I rang the bell. Congratulations, you got the store. It wouldn't open for another 12 months. So we opened up January 9th of 2020. And
Wow.
I'm thinking like, wow, 2020 vision, I'm thinking about all these great things that 2020 is going to be. And, we had to pivot very early on in our business. We hired 120 people when we probably should have only hired about 80. And so we had very high labor our first month. So we're already pivoting. We were already trying to adapt to our business and um, running our first ever restaurant. So we're learning about the business, we're learning about labor and food costs and all these things very, very early on. And so one of the major pivots we did first was to hire a cleaning crew so that my team could close the store at 10 p.m. and maybe be out of the store by 10:15. Instead of what we did our first month was close the store at 10. They spend another 2-3 hours cleaning and washing dishes and scrubbing the floors and cleaning the bathrooms and wiping the counters. Now they're tired, and then we have to turn around and be right back there the next day at 5:45 in the morning. So it was very long nights, very early mornings, high labor. And so we already pivoted by saying, I tell you what, you're no longer going to have to close. You close the store, put a few things away, the cleaning crew will come in and clean the entire restaurant. Now I know what my labor is. My team has better morale. They're more energized for the next day. So that leads us into like February. February, we say, okay, what else can we do? How else can we continue to adjust? That only is a month away from this thing we hear that's in Europe. Oh, there's a case somewhere in Seattle or somewhere random. Now it's a thing. There's about to be your kids are coming home for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm having to pivot on who's watching, London at home. Okay, now this is something that we're going to live with for 2 years. So we immediately said, okay, well, we got to close our dining room, which means that's a major part of our business going away. Let's turn on third party deliveries like DoorDash. Let's get accounts with Postmates and Uber Eats and Grubhub. Let's do this thing called curbside where the guests don't even have to come in because I know we don't know what's going on with this virus. You park, you place an order, We'll bring out the food to you. We'll bring it out on a tray so we can just hand it to you. You don't even have to touch our hands or anything, just minimal contact. And that allowed us to go from doing about 65% of our business through the drive through to about 75, and then 75%. And then the rest of it was through these other channels that we were able to create and turn on. Started doing catering. We started doing these other things to sustain the business. That was our major pivot. But I will say that going into it and having to pivot so early on, COVID was just another pivot. It wasn't the major pivot, if that makes sense. It was
Mhm.
just one more thing in the line of things that we had to adjust.
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, this learning experience, right? Because we're still sort of, I mean, I don't know how things are in California, but I mean,
Mhm.
we're still in it. We're still in it a little, but not like before. But
Right.
I mean, you pray that there's nothing, that we run into nothing bigger than that. I
I
mean,
don't know what else, I don't know what else it could be except maybe, something violent, right? Or something that's
yeah,
still could be unexpected, where
yeah,
somebody's just not having a great day and they come in and cause some
yeah,
problems for the team, or a natural disaster. But the pandemic was a little bit of all of that, because it caused business harm, like financial harm, to a lot of
yeah,
people. A lot of people lost businesses and life savings. It caused family problems and issues where people are now having to be cooped up in the house together when they
right,
don't normally. So that's causing issues. I'm in a predominantly Hispanic community, so there's culturally there's the multi-generational families under one roof, and we
mhm,
know that the most vulnerable at this time were the very young kids who couldn't obviously be vaccinated, and then our elderly brothers and sisters. And so our team members are now becoming the breadwinners because their older mothers or and fathers or grandparents can't leave the house, or don't want to leave the house because they want to be quarantined, they want to be isolated, they want to be safe. And so now this kid who was just in college now has to work 40 hours a week just to help sustain their family, and they are
right,
now the adult. And
right,
so it was it challenged people in a lot of ways, and in so many ways. And then you add on the social injustice and everything else that took place in 2020, and it's I know, I see why it's the year people want to forget, but that's also the disservice that you do to yourself, and that I would have done to my team and to myself, is if I tried to sweep it under the rug and just forget about it. We embraced the pivot. We
right,
embraced
right, right. And so,
right?
I mean, again, it kind of goes back to that piece of pottery, right? There were some cracks. I mean, things were, there were a lot of unknown, but again, you don't, and now once you put it back with that precious metal, right? That precious metal stands out. It's like, show those cracks, show that vulnerability, show how you put things back together,
Yeah,
because everybody can learn from it, right?
everybody.
Versus just putting it back together and nobody can. It's just like, oh, this is just a brand new bowl. No, you can appreciate it more because you can see the cracks.
Yeah.
And my guest I had on last week, same thing. It's like, she lets her cracks show,
Mm,
and because again, that's what's going to feed other people, not just the polished and shiny.
right.
It's the, you pick yourself up and you're still moving. That's what's going to teach and guide people and feed the other people when they look at you, because that's something I wanted, that I've tried to live my life in a way. I want people to look at me and say, wow, he's still doing it. um Look at what he's doing despite this or
Right.
despite that. And again, nobody's life's perfect. I think about like my daughters. We're so blessed to have them, because there was a time where my wife and I, we didn't think we could have kids, right?
Oh,
We
yes.
lost our first baby, and
Mhm.
I'm looking at the two that I have now, and it's just like, man, if that had worked out, then you guys may not be here. You see what I'm saying?
Right,
So
right.
it's just a trade-off, man. I just see, we're all going to experience negative, but you've got to see the positive. There are going to be positive things that come out of every negative. I'm a firm believer. That's that optimist in me again.
I agree. I'm the
I,
same way.
I believe out of every storm that there's going to be some sunshine coming down the way. There's this, it's coming. You just you gotta be patient enough to wait on it.
Yeah.
Because we can't rush everything. But we just
Very
got to keep moving forward.
And we experienced that miscarriage and loss of our first child as well. And so I share that similarity with you. And what I think COVID and with 2020 and the idea of pivoting, and the reason this podcast is so amazing is that it gives us an opportunity to share stories, and then we realize how much in common we have with people.
Exactly.
Right? It may not be the exact same thing. We may not be pivoting the exact same way. You may turn left, I may turn right. When I pivot, right, I'm thinking about basketball, take that pivot step, you know. But in the idea of pivoting is not just mine. It's not just yours. We all pivot in our own way. You have multiple kids and you realize not every kid is the same. So you got to teach them and parent them differently. So that means you're
Exactly.
pivoting, right? You go and work or you go major in architectural engineering and realize, hey, that's not necessarily what I want to do. I still want to be successful. There's still a vision I have for my
Right.
life. To get there, I might have to pivot, right?
Right.
And so I think uh, what I've learned about myself is that, and what I feel like I really got right with the business with Chick-fil-A, is I knew where I wanted to go. I knew
Mhm.
how I wanted it to feel. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know that COVID would hit, but I knew where we wanted to go. So, for example, I'm in California now. If I wanted to go to Disney World in Florida, I know that that's where I want to go. I may look up one day and then I'm all the way in Montana and I'm like, what am I doing up here? How did I get here? But I still know I want to go to Florida. So now I
Right.
got to pivot and, maybe get some more directions or change my tires out, maybe my whatever I need to do, right? I'm going to
Right.
figure out what I need to do to go there. The worst thing though is to not even know where I'm going.
Right. Right.
Where
And
do I
like I said, and I remember seeing when you opened your restaurant, I was like, wow, that is awesome. But for some reason, I lost track of. I've lost complete track of time for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I did not know that it was right there. I did not know it was right. It was 2 months before COVID. I'm
Yeah.
opening the
Oh,
restaurant.
no, yeah, yeah. Two
That
months.
that
2 months.
is amazing. And
So I just think the biggest thing for us there was that we reached out to people. We all shared our experiences. We all learned and grew together because nobody had a pandemic playbook. Nobody
right.
had a pandemic. This is what you do with your family. This is how you raise your kids. This is how you run your business
Right.
in a pandemic. So that meant that if we didn't learn anything from COVID, is that you got to open your mouth. You have to trust and believe that you're not the only one going through what you're going through. Now, your experiences may be different. Like I didn't lose anybody in my family, like they
Yeah.
didn't pass away from COVID. Doesn't mean I can't empathize for what that loss feels like. I may have
Right.
lost something else, right?
Right. Right.
And so yeah.
And I know. I mean, for me, the wife and I, same deal. We I would say financially, health wise. I mean, I didn't lose like one of my aunts passed from
Okay.
COVID. One of my
Okay.
aunts,
Sorry about that, man.
but none of my core. I would say my core. I mean, if the hardest part about COVID for me was sitting in the house with my daughters and my wife, man, what I'm
I'll take
saying. I mean, I will definitely take it because I look back the time that we spent with our kids.
it.
My
Hmm.
daughter's senior year in high school. Yeah, does she want to be out in the street and yeah. But to have that year, her last year of high school, in the house with us every day, all day, and it wasn't, them locked away in their room where they didn't want to communicate with us. I mean, yeah, they were in their room a lot, like most teenagers, but
Hmm.
when they come out, we have very good family time. We'd have really, really good family time. We'd watch movies together. And you couldn't get that. I mean, we couldn't get that back if we wanted to,
Yeah.
without this experience, unfortunately. But I mean, I've loved being. I mean, lock me away with my wife and two daughters. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're safe.
Hmm.
Because again, when this thing first popped off, I'm like, okay, my mind starts going far to the left, thinking, okay, this thing could. This is something. First of all, I never dreamed that we would ever live through anything like this. And I'm
I
thinking
know. I mean,
people could get nutty. You know, it's like, how am I going to protect my family if things get nutty? Because I had this nightmare years ago, man, that the internet broke,
oof.
right? And I'm like, okay. And then I started going there. I'm like, okay, we're close to the internet breaking.
And
And
if
I'm like,
that would happen, that would probably been the worst part because then we really would have been disconnected
oh,
from anybody.
yeah. Yeah.
That would
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, without COVID, if the internet breaks, we're in trouble.
yeah, really are.
We are in trouble, but hopefully that won't help. I mean, I've been, you talk about pivoting. I went to Virginia Tech. I'm a Virginia boy. So
Okay.
I went to Virginia Tech. I got accepted A&T, but I couldn't afford it. So I stayed in the state.
Okay. I don't
So
believe.
I went to Virginia Tech for engineering. I left with a degree in economics.
Mm,
I came out of school, ran to Atlanta, landed a job in IT. I've been
okay.
working in IT for 20 odd years, and it's just hilarious to me. And so that's what I tell my daughter. I'm like, we're not holding you to a major, but we are holding you to an education of some
There you
kind,
go. Yeah.
you know. But
That's
man,
the
look,
vision, though. You know where you want to end up. You want to end up with
exactly.
education, what you learn and how you apply it and what it looks like in your career. That remains to be seen. But
Because
yeah,
a good base education can take you anywhere.
yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? Because here I am. I'm like, okay, I'm late. I'm sort of like I'm like 45 plus. And I'm like I'm going to school to get my MBA. I'm
Yeah,
starting. And it was so good for me to do that, so my daughters could actually see me up late at night
yeah,
writing papers, doing work, and then when they saw me walk across that stage, that was just like, it's like that was like the ultimate thing I could have done it as a dad. It's just for them to see me finish school and for
yeah,
them to know that those late nights that daddy was up, that they paid off, that they paid off. So, and then now that one's, about to be, well, she's taking some, a full load of classes right now at Wake Tech. And she's
okay,
just chomping at the bit to say, August, this is where I'm going to plant my flag,
got it.
and I'm excited for her. And then that's the youngest. I'm excited for her to start her journey and figure out what she wants to do. And right now, she's like, "Daddy, I'll go to school anywhere where Morgan is not." I'm like, what? I'm like,
Look,
no. How about both of y'all go to the same school? No, I can't do that.
she
She's
doesn't
gonna
want
be
much. She just wants to, her own life, her own freedom, I guess, right?
exactly, exactly. Well, man, look, thank you for your time. We got a couple minutes left. And I'll be staying in contact with you, man. If I'm ever in LA, if you're ever back on this side of the world, let me know. I'd love to get out with you,
Same.
just to pick your brain a bit, man. Because like I said, I don't know where this thing's going. I mean, and you it sounds like some of this sort of stuff you've been there and you've done that. So I love to pick your brain, brother.
Yeah, well, no, this is just the first of many conversations. Thanks for having me. Appreciate everybody watching. Continue to pivot, continue to make those opportunities. Don't wait for them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree so much. Well, man, take care of yourself. Be safe. Take care of that family, man, and keep those people saying my pleasure.
Absolutely, I will.
I'll talk to you soon, Craig.
Peace.
See you. Man, that was so good to me. Um, again, to be able to have that conversation with the brother, and I've never met him. But we've met in a big way, right? Just right here. So, again, this is episode 5. Like Craig said, he did 70 episodes. Will we get to 70 episodes? I have no idea. But again, my goal is to just keep bringing people, keep bringing knowledge and information to you all that you can use, because I know just listening to Craig, I mean, it's helped me, because just hearing how things have gone in his life, and you know and there's a lot of stuff that he said that I can definitely relate to, I agree with. And me being a lot older than Craig, it doesn't matter, it's going to help me, and the conversations can truly fed me. So thanks for tuning in. Please like the show, subscribe to the show, give us a rating, let us know how we're doing, let us know about our content, and we'll keep trying to bring guests to the show that's worth listening to, because my network seems to be growing every day. And like I said, things may change a little bit in the future, as far as the video simulcasting piece of things, but me, the show showing up on different podcast platforms is definitely something that I plan to continue to keep doing. And if you ever have anything going on out there where you need somebody to come speak or talk about, just pivots in life and changes in life, look me up. I'd definitely be willing to come and talk to some people, share my story, because again, I shared a little bit tonight, just about probably one of the most major pivots that's happened in my life, 11 years ago. But guess what? I'm still here. I'm still right here, and I plan to be here, much longer than now. So, thanks again, and you guys stay blessed.